Earned every one of those inches. No pressure there for McDonough. How we doing, McDonough? Thank you. I want to say thank you to, first of all, to John for that really beautiful introduction. I appreciate it. You must have been studying for a long time to learn all those things, and more importantly, to remember them. That's super impressive. I know that's a tough thing to do. I actually did play soccer pretty much my whole life up until I got involved in politics. Politics became like my new soccer. But I started playing when I was 7 years old, and I played primarily on all boys teams up until I played in high school, which is the first experience I had playing on girls teams. And back then I was almost always the only girl on an all boys team. And it never dawned on me that that was weird. I just always wanted to prove myself, and I knew I could play just as well as or better than the boys. And my mom, when I first said I wanted to play, there were no girls playing at the time, and I never thought that was an obstacle. And my dad, I said, I want to play that, and my mom said, no, honey, and my parents have always been super supportive, so I don't say the story of being mean to my mom, because she's been a huge support of my whole life, but she's like, no, honey, soccer is for boys, that's a boys sport. And I, of course, did what every normal 6-year-old would do, and that was started throwing a temper tantrum. And then my father, I think just to calm me down, who again has always been a big champion, he said, hey, look, just if she wants to play, let's sign her up next season, right? And I bet she'll probably get kicked in the shins, and then she'll want to quit. But let it be her decision, right? Don't tell her no just because there's no other girls playing. And so my mom said that was fine, and they signed me up. And so when I was 7, I traded my ballet shoes for a pair of soccer shoes, and I got kicked in the shins, and I just kicked back harder. That has been the story of my life, I think, the rest of certainly of my political career. So, but thanks for sharing that, because it's a fun story. I hardly ever talk about it, but it really has been a formative part of who I am today, right? Because soccer taught me so many things, and I played competitively pretty much probably since I was maybe 9 years old on. And all year, and it's all I knew, and I loved it, and I didn't want to just be good at it, I wanted to be the best at it, and it taught me how important it was to be able to work with a team and to bring your teammates up, right? And it also taught me to develop my own leadership skills so that I could excel as an individual, but also know that when my team is playing well together, we're going to be much more successful. And I think that that is a recipe for success that has followed me into my career in government. And I feel very honored. So I want to just start by saying thank you to Chairman Trotter, and I'm so sad to hear that you're retiring, but hopefully, I saw Rocky Wakes the other day, Chairman Wakes, he looks like 20 years younger after retiring. So I'll see you here same time next year, and you're probably going to have like blonde hair and highlights or something. Yeah, so it seems to be working. And but thank you, and then your last thing is to make sure you bring out the votes, as many as you can before you retire. And I know that might be soon, but still, lock them in now. Early votes are like early money, we love them. So early committals is what you can do for us now. But thank you to all of the McDonough County Democrats for your support. I was here 2 years ago, not actually in this building, but I went to Senator Sullivan's retirement. And I spoke to some folks there and asked for your support. I think I even said, if you forget my name, remember old Susana, won't you vote for me? Yeah, I don't really do that anymore, but I think, there's one person who knows my name, and that's Bruce Rauner these days, right? So, for her. But that's okay. But in any event, I want to say thank you, because at that time I went before you to ask you for your support. I told you that I was running for the most important position that most people had never heard of, which was the office of the controller. And hopefully by now, most people realize that there is a controller in the state of Illinois and what the position does. I'm responsible for paying the state's bills. Most importantly, I would say that at this time, in this moment in history, I'm responsible for prioritizing those that need to be paid in the most difficult of financial circumstances. And hopefully someday I'll be in a position, or the next controller who will, once we get to a point where the state is totally fiscally sound, will just be able to pay the bills as they come in, right? The bill comes in, you pay it out. We're not there yet, folks, but I'm working on it. But those would be wonderful days. That's just not the situation today. And so having a person in this office that has a strong moral compass, that understands that the state of Illinois is just not about numbers on a spreadsheet, but really who those numbers represent, and prioritizing the needs of people who can't defend themselves or speak for themselves, and people who have lost hope that no one cares about them. They can know that they have a controller that does care. And that, you know, today I was out in Freeport, Illinois, visiting a center for children and adults with all kinds of really serious disabilities, from autism to diseases that I can't even pronounce. And it's heartbreaking and it's hope engendering at the same time. It's very emotionally draining, right? Because you feel so impotent that you want to be able to help more, and you think maybe you can't, but I always believe that you can, and we have to find a way to do that. But these moments, you know, I was at the center and I couldn't get my eyes off of one woman in particular, and the director kept talking to me, and I was just like, I'm sorry, I just can't stop looking. And it's because I want to help. And I totally broke down and got very emotional, and she's like, oh, don't feel bad. I wanted you to see her, but not so that you would feel bad. And I said, no, I need this. This is exactly what I need to see, because if I go to a center that treats people with disabilities and all they do is show me all the success stories, right, all the beautiful things that are happening, like we saw this a choir that they put together and they were dancing Michael Jackson songs, and it was awesome. That was super uplifting. Then you go see the other side of what these folks that are earning next to nothing to pour their heart and soul into literally providing life-saving treatment to people, and just a dignity. Because this woman, for example, she couldn't eat on her own. Clearly, she can't, you know, clean herself, do anything by herself. They had to stop her from biting herself and punching herself in the face and hitting her head against a wall. She actually has a helmet. And the state has now, because she's aged out of what used to be, like, let's say if you're a child in this developmental service scenario, the state can give you $78,000 a year for this individual for the whole year, which I promise you, it's way more expensive than that. But because she now turned 22 years old, she's technically an adult, and the state only offers $47,000, right? So from one day to the next, you lose half of your coverage. And there's no waiver that allows this facility to continue to care for her. They have to basically age her out. And there's no one willing to even take her because she's so high maintenance, right, in terms of the amount of care that has to be given to her, that no one's willing to take this case on. So you have a center that's in violation because they still have this woman that they haven't been able to transition out. And they're in violation for doing the right moral thing, right? So if I don't see these things up close, and I don't get emotionally upset by them, then nothing's going to change, right? So I thanked her for making me feel that horrible, because it's not about me, it's about that woman. And it's about all the other people like her that need to have an advocate at a high level in state government that can try to make a difference. And that's what I believe my job as your controller is. It's not to sit behind some desk. And I know a lot of you are on Facebook and Twitter, and every now and then you come to my defense with these crazy trollers. So thank you, that's awesome. And there's one troller in particular that's like, stop parading around the whole state, sit behind your desk and do your job, you know. And it makes me so happy whenever he trolls me like that, because I just feel like I am so doing my job, and it's so getting under people's skin, and I love it. Because that's what's gonna change the state for the better. And so I want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to have these experiences, because it's really what motivates me every day to try to do a better job for you as your controller. To know that every single person in this room was with me when I was standing in that room today, upset and emotionally distraught and wanting to change that woman's life, even if she will never know that it's happening. But it's because I had that moment with her that I will hopefully be able to put some movement, put something in motion that will change that. Maybe create a process for a waiver that would allow this institution to continue to care for this woman. You know, I asked about that, and they said, we used to have those waivers, and then they got rid of them in 2014. It makes no sense to me. It's just like a bureaucratic move that's a bad move, right? So let's fix this, and when I see a problem, I want to fix it. So as your controller, just to give you a quick update on some of the boring stuff that's very exciting to me, that you should know. So I don't want you to think I just ran for controller, so I talk a lot and I know I'm always sparring with Governor Rauner, and that gets people all excited, but you should want me to actually do a good job in the position, which is to be a fiscal watchdog for all of you as taxpayers, and to help put things in motion that will create greater stability for our state's finances, because that's really important to avoid having state universities like Western go into junk bond territory, right? This is what happened. We have a governor who doesn't care about higher education, and so his words say, I care about higher education, while his actions / funding for higher education is greater extent than any other governor in the history of this state. And 5 state universities going to deep junk bond territory. 2 of our universities were on the verge of missing their first debt service payments. 2 of them. This university was really, really close to defaulting on debt service. If that happens, that's the beginning of the end. It's just the reality of it. And so when that budget finally passed on July 6th, the first payments out the door were to higher education. The MAP grants went out the door, and that $700 million that we had sitting in a fund that I wasn't able to touch went out the door. And we're going to make sure that Eastern and all these universities could do that. And every chance that I've had to evangelize on behalf of higher education, I've done it, because to disinvest in higher education it should be criminal. I mean, you're money producers for the state of Illinois, so even if you don't want to look at it from a moral perspective, that we have a moral obligation to educate our children and to keep people in this state because they know that we have, world-class institutions of higher education, even if you didn't care about the moral aspect of it, you have to look at it from an economic perspective and say for every dollar that we invest in higher ed here, you're going to generate possibly up to $8, some universities even more. But just common math doesn't seem to make sense to this administration. I should say to the governor's administration, certainly not mine. We are crunching the numbers, and the numbers tell a story that by investing in higher education, like investing in early education, it's a great return on investment for the state and certainly for the region's economy. So you have a huge fan in what you're doing when it comes to our higher education here in this, Western Illinois University area. And I'm going to continue to fight for you, I promise you. And I have prioritized, this is how I start, with children and adults with disabilities, nursing home, hospice care, and anybody who has the need for home healthcare workers, right? These are the people who can't even speak for themselves in hospice centers and nursing homes in a facility like I saw today. They need an advocate, and they don't have fancy lobbyists, they don't have high-priced attorneys, they have me. And I'm going to go out there and fight for them every single day, and they're going to come to the front of the line, and the governor's high-priced consultants can go to the back. I don't make any apologies for it, folks. This is how I'm going to cover When I prove it that I'm prioritizing both early childhood education and secondary education, high school, obviously high school falls in that, but the higher education, again, the first bills out the door were to higher ed because we had universities on the verge of defaulting on their debt service, and I wasn't going to let that happen on my watch, and we could help. So you continue to have my commitment as your controller to put the needs of the people of this state first. So it's not just the students, it's the employees that work at those universities, it's the families that feed their kids as a result of having that economic engine, and it helps the state when all of the state is doing well. Now, I may be from Chicago, and I think I told folks, don't hold that against me in the past. And certainly, I probably spent more time in central and southern Illinois than I even have back at home since taking office, and before that when I was campaigning. And I've gotten to know the state so well, and I was actually telling Christy, who's on my team today, I think it was Christy, or no, maybe it was Jamie, but I said, wouldn't it be cool if we stopped off in every single town that actually exists in Illinois? I don't know that anyone's ever done that. Like, do a map and say, like, I'm going to just pull over randomly at some person's house and say, hi, I'm Susana Mendoza, I'm your top journalist. Give me a little bit of your life story, and I'm going to document that, because that would be just so cool, right? But anyway, this is how I just randomly think. But, it's maybe like a goal I'm going to set for myself, but I've definitely been to all 102 counties, and I really love this state. So by getting out there, by talking to people, by hearing their stories, is that I can then be a megaphone for their voices, right? This is what I do. I'm going to project the stories of other people and then try to build a a game plan to help their lives be better. And I can't do it by myself. So thank you for having set me to be your controller. Since taking office, I've passed one bill. I already don't like that because I'm visualizing the second one already. But we did the Debt Transparency Act, which requires monthly reporting to my office from the governor's state agencies. Right now, I only got to see the extent of the liabilities that were sitting in the government coffers once a year. And I had no idea that was the case. When I ran for this office, I just assumed as the state's chief fiscal officer that I'd be able to see all the bills, right? Doesn't that just seem like common sense? So then my first week on the job, I found out that's not true. I can only see about half the bills, or at least I think about half the bills. And then it turns out that in essence, I was about right about that. So it turns out that I only get a report once a year in October, and that report's only current as of June 30th. And all that report says, which by the time I get it, as you did the math, is 90 days, out of date. All it tells me is what the total amount of liabilities are that are sitting at state agencies outside of my visibility. They're not in the controller's office ready to be paid. And the controller pays the state's bills. So for example, if Bill is a vendor with the Department of Corrections, and he provides the food, let's say, he would contract with the Department of Corrections, which is a state agency. You follow me? And then when he provides the food, he would send them an invoice. And then once they verify that that invoice is correct, they would then turn it into what is known as a voucher. So when you see this terminology on the website or wherever, you know what we're talking about. So this voucher then, that has been approved, gets sent to the controller's office. And once that voucher is in my possession, if there is enough money in the treasury for me to pay that bill, I can pay it. Follow? What happens is that the state agencies might get, $3 million worth of vouchers from the Hula Hands company, and they sit on those vouchers up to 11 months, sometimes more. I have no idea that these vouchers even exist. And then, next thing you know, they send them over to me in one huge pile while I'm trying to manage the state's financials. So to give you an example, and I know you guys have already eaten, so I don't want to spoil your dinner, but in the month of May, I went to bed thinking that our bill backlog was an outrageous $13.3 billion. And it turns out that in the morning I woke up and it was 14.3 because they sent me, the governor's agencies did, $1 billion worth of bills that I didn't even know existed. So how am I supposed to possibly do my best at managing the state's fiscal crisis if I can't even see the extent of the fiscal crisis? They're basically hiding the bills from the public and most importantly from the person responsible for managing the checkbook. It's equivalent, I guess the closest comparison I could give you is if you at home only looked at your checkbook once a year. Not balanced it, just looked at it. So you'd have no idea that maybe your spouse went on a wild shopping spree or your kids did, right? Until way after the fact, and now you're racking up late payments and all this kind of stuff. So the only thing that I would get once a year is this report. It's on one page, literally, 87 state agencies telling you what the amount of total liabilities are that they're sitting on. It's a useless document. So I passed a bill that requires monthly reporting to my office from all the state agencies. They have to tell me what the extent of their liabilities are that month. Also what the late payment interest penalties are associated to those liabilities. And we have now found out that they've been over $1 billion worth of late payment interest penalties. That's just interest charges that we're on the hook for. And I also want to know whether or not these liabilities were even authorized by the legislature. In other words, like when John Curtis wins, he's going to be a legislator, and his job is to appropriate dollars in a budget. And once that budget is set, they're not supposed to go over the appropriated amount. But last year alone, Governor Rauner deficit spent to the tune of $2.5 billion. So next year's budget literally starts $2.5 billion in the hole. How's he going to pay for it? I think that's a legitimate question that all voters should be asking Governor Rauner. Those are his state agencies, by the way, just to educate the public here who may think it's the legislator's fault that the deficit spending was so high. It's not. The legislators appropriate funding per the Constitution, and that's their job. Once that budget is set in stone, the governor, whether it's a Democratic or a Republican governor, then takes responsibility for what contracts are entered into at the agency level. So the legislators, they're out of that. So if there's deficit spending in any given year, It's on the governor. So it happens to be on Governor Rauner. He can't blame anybody else. Of course he does, all the time. Never accepts responsibility for his own actions. It's like Rauneritis, it's a disease, right? And then every time he's called out on it, he lies about it, right? He says, I pass balanced budgets all the time. I've passed 4 balanced budgets. I've introduced 4 balanced budgets. You know, my grandparents are immigrants from Sweden. It's like lie after lie after lie after lie, right? He did everything exactly right, and so did his staff at the Quincy Veterans Home. Right? Oh, everything was exactly right. If he had a chance to do it over again, would he have changed anything? No. We did everything we need to know. That we overrode his veto in November. Yeah, very cool. But here's the best part, right? We overrode his veto in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, but in the House, we overrode it unanimously. That has never happened in the history of the state of Illinois, that the House of Representatives has unanimously overridden a sitting governor's veto. So what does that tell you? Number one, it didn't happen by accident. We did work our tail off convincing Republicans that this was the right thing to do for the state's financials. And that was not an easy task, but we did. And then I worked all of the editorial boards in the state. Almost every single one of them wrote a glowing editorial in support of this legislation. The governor made a big mistake by fighting me on this, just as he has every time he's tried to fight me on anything. And then now we're introducing a legislation called Truth in Hiring. And that means this, it's real simple. If you work for the governor's office, then those employees should be reflected in your budget, right? Make sense? So the governor's latest budget that he proposed on Valentine's Day, it asked for $4.9 million for 44 employees that work for him. Turns out he has 102 employees, but 58 of them are paid out of agency budgets. That's a no-no. It's not supposed to happen. But to Governor Rauner's credit, he's not the only governor who's done this. Democrats and Republicans alike have done this. It's a deceptive practice and it needs to stop. So our office is introducing the Truth in Hiring bill, which will prevent any governor, including this one or any future governors, from really being dishonest as to what their true budget is. So if you need 102 employees, then just say you need 102 employees, and the people can understand that, right? You're not dumb, you get it. Like, you need certain employees to run government. But you shouldn't hide your payroll in other agencies that need those dollars. Because when you, as a governor, and this governor did on World Autism Day exactly 3 years ago, today is World Autism Day. 3 years ago on World Autism Day, Bruce Rauner cut autism funding in the state of Illinois. He announced the cuts on World Autism Day, right? Again, this governor only makes sense on opposite day. Yeah. But having said that, at the same time, what people didn't know was that he took $250,000 out of Department of Human Services and the autism funding to pay an education czar a $250,000 salary. It had nothing to do with human services, right? This is what is known as offshoring your payroll, your employees. And so we're gonna put a stop to offshoring the governor's employees. It's the only agency that does this, or the only constitutional officer that does this like that. And we're just gonna say really simply, the governor has to honestly report, has to be truth in hiring. Oh, are you ladies okay? Everybody okay back there?
Yeah, we're all right.
Hey, Pat, please go help him pick up, man. Yeah. Send the big guy over there. But in any event, so it's real simple, and we just met with 2 editorial boards today. There's already been 2 editorials in favor of this. Governor Rauner, shockingly, has not said he's supporting this, right? But he also might have learned his lesson because he's not battling it out with me yet, right? So you never know. But if he has a little bit of smarts, he would embrace this, but I don't expect that to happen. But I hope you all embrace this, because this is what my job is, to be your fiscal watchdog and make sure that if I'm your state's chief fiscal officer, the numbers are not fake numbers, we're not hiding the ball as to what we're doing with your taxpayer dollars. You should know about it, and we make all of this information available to you publicly. So lastly, I'm going to say this. I've been a big fan of J.B. Pritzker's since I knew he got in the race. And I was learning, though, about all the candidates, and really took my time before I made a public endorsement in that race. And as I traveled the whole state, and I've been to the 102 counties, I'd see JP at like almost every place that I had been. And I was so impressed at how hard he was working to win people's hearts and win their minds, and to more importantly understand their thinking. Because this is why I travel the state, to hear about these stories and see them up close, because then I can tell a better story and I understand what needs to be fixed. And so I don't want a gubernatorial candidate who just kind of reads about stuff and hears about stuff from other people. I want him to be just as emotionally shocked as I am when I see things that I think I've seen it all, and then it's like, whoa, here's another eye-opening experience. And I truly believe, with the bottom of my heart, that J.B. Pritzker cares about the state, that he's the right guy at the right time to step up and trounce Bruce Rauner, to really humiliate him in the process. I don't want to just win this race. I mean, Jeannie Ives did a pretty good job of emotion that are going to improve people's lives. Who every night is going to ask himself, did I give it my best? And then wake up the next morning in the same way, right? Rinse, repeat. This is what we want. And I really, truly believe, after all of the time that I've gotten to know JB, and I consider him a dear friend, that he's the right guy, and he is as genuine as they come. And I know people have asked me, how can you support a billionaire, right? They say, aren't we just trading one for another? And I say, no, because number one, I'm never going to critique someone for having a lot of money, right? Let's just be honest. This is America, and it's kind of like a beautiful thing that you can come from nothing and maybe hit it big. Now, he inherited a lot of his wealth from his parents, but what I tell people is that his greatest inheritance wasn't the money that his parents left him when they died when he was very young. It wasn't the money. The greatest inheritance that they gave him was a set of values that they instilled in him as a young child. Those set of values are priceless, and they usually mean anything to us. He has an ability to feel empathy in a way that I haven't seen in a lot of people that I have gotten to know and meet along the way in this career of mine, this public service that I've had the honor and privilege to serve in, this capacity. He gets it, he feels it, and he wants to fix it. And I know that he can. He can bring people together in a way that we haven't seen in a long time. And that is what you need. You need a person who's going to build relationships, who's going to be able to work with people from the other side of the aisle. Look, during elections, it is it's partisan, that's what it is. It's kind of like a soccer game, right? Like, you could be my best friend, but if you're on the other team tomorrow when I play you, I am taking you down. And then after we beat you, we're friends again, you know? So, like, we can do nice things for people. This is what politics is. It is somewhat of a blood sport. But when the game is over on election day, then you have to come together and you have to govern. And we need a governor who's going to actually be in charge and who's going to govern and who's already set plans in motion to help fix this state. And so please, regardless of who you were with prior to the election, the beauty about the Democratic Party is we have a lot of great candidates. But now we have the best candidate who's going to beat Bruce Rauner, and we cannot afford to have a single one of us still feel dejected because our guy didn't win, right? We can't do that. Because no matter how much you may not have liked anybody other than your person, you cannot really look me in the eye and say that Rauner would be better. No chance, no chance. Like, you seriously need to get checked if that's what you're thinking. And we have enough of crazy on their side of the aisle, okay? So let's not do that. Let's come together. Let's get excited. Let's keep this momentum going. You know, we say that there's a blue wave coming. I kind of felt the mist the other day. Yeah, I did. I'm feeling the mist. And now I really just want to get overtaken by it. So let's do this. Please come out there, work hard. Thank you to all the committee people, committee persons, and also to all the people who are running for office, because it is not an easy thing to put your name on the ballot, to spend time away from your family, to risk feeling humiliated on election day if you don't win. And I've been there where I ran and I lost that first race by 55 votes, and it was heartbreaking for about a half hour. And then I knew that, hey, I'm totally gonna do this next time. And so, John, this is your time. You know, you gotta do it. We have to get this man elected. Julie, we're gonna like overcome the 18 with that blue wave. All of the candidates in here. Emily, what are you waiting for, women? I don't know where she went, but you need to be right there, over there, stand up. You go, girl, come on. And by the way, women actually talked into running a lot more than the guys. We need to stop that. Donald Trump is president. Jeez Louise, like, you know, if I would have known that, I would have put my puppy up to run, right? So, it is like anything is possible. And so if you're qualified and you put your name on the ballot, go for it. Let's do it. So thank you very much, Democrats. You rock. And I look forward to, number one, please getting your votes again. Someone said to me, good luck. I said, luck is great, votes are better. And let's do this for all our candidates, and let's win from the top of the ticket all the way to the bottom, and let's make sure to humiliate the governor on the way out. Thank you.